Hey everyone, and welcome back to another breakdown session. Today, we are diving into a topic that, let's be real, impacts almost every single one of us every single day. We're talking about social media, but more specifically, how it's transformed from just a fun little place to pass the time into an absolute powerhouse engine for business. So, buckle up, because in this explainer, we're figuring out exactly how to shift our mindset from passive, endless scrolling to building an active, data-driven strategy.
To kick things off, let's think about a question I know we've all wondered about at some point. Why is it that a tiny, unknown mom-and-pop brand can suddenly just go massively viral overnight, while a giant global corporation with a multi-million-dollar marketing budget launches a campaign that, well, completely flops? Crickets, right? As we'll see today, the answer almost always comes down to understanding the actual mechanics of digital engagement. It's not just about throwing money at a screen and hoping it sticks.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. First, beyond scrolling, what actually is SMM? Second, we'll weigh SMM against traditional marketing. Third, we're busting some major social media myths. After that, we'll get into the art of audience targeting, followed by building data-driven buyer personas. And finally, we'll wrap up with the social technographics ladder. Lots of ground to cover, so let's get into it.
Starting right off with Section 1, Beyond Scrolling. What is SMM?
So what is it exactly? At its core, social media marketing, or SMM, is the process of gaining website traffic or attention through platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, you name it. But here's the absolute crucial distinction, folks. We are moving way beyond just blasting out paid ads. Real, successful SMM is all about generating authentic word of mouth and driving actual action. Think about it. When a message spreads organically from one everyday user to another, it just hits different, right? It resonates way more deeply because it's coming from a trusted source, like a friend or a peer, rather than a faceless corporate mouthpiece. We're trying to earn media here, not just buy it. To really get this, let's take a quick trip down memory lane. Back in the early 2000s, it was all about targeted reach. Think pioneers like MySpace and the early days of Facebook. Then, around 2010, boom, we entered the visual era. Instagram and Pinterest hit the scene, and aesthetics became everything. Fast forward to the mid-2010s, and algorithms got seriously smart, giving us that rapid-fire, highly personalized short-form content we see on Snapchat and TikTok. And today, well, we are living in a landscape totally dominated by AI-driven tools and integrated commerce where you can discover, compare, and buy all without ever leaving the app. But here is the kicker. Even though the tech is constantly changing, our underlying human desire to connect, to share, and to recommend things to each other, that hasn't changed one bit. Which brings us to Section 2, SMM versus traditional marketing. Think of traditional marketing like a massive static billboard right by the highway, or maybe a classic TV commercial. It's very much a one-way broadcast. Sure, it reaches a broad audience, but it's super expensive, and honestly, if it's not working, you can't exactly just climb up a ladder and swap out the billboard on a Tuesday afternoon. Social media marketing, on the other hand, is this dynamic, two-way conversation. Customers can actually talk back. They comment, message, and share. Plus, the targeting is incredibly precise. You aren't just shouting at everyone. You're whispering directly to exactly who you want to reach. It is highly cost-effective, and maybe best of all, you get real-time analytics. If your campaign isn't hitting the mark at 10 a.m., you can literally tweak it and pivot by 11 a.m. It's a total game changer. All right, moving on to Section 3, Busting Social Media Myths. We need to absolutely destroy a massive stereotype right out of the gate here. Myth number 1, social media is just a young person's game. Reality check, folks. Adults aged 55 and older are actually the fastest growing demographic of tablet users on social media right now. Yes, Gen Z and millennials are super active, for sure, but older demographics are totally flocking to platforms like Facebook, WhatsApp, and YouTube. So if you're building a strategy, you cannot just rely on old stereotypes. You have to tailor your approach to the actual diverse and rapidly growing demographics of your specific audience. Don't leave them out. And here's another pretty dangerous myth. Social media marketing is 100% free. Well, okay, setting up a profile is free, but driving an actual return on investment, that takes real resources. We're talking quality content creation, video editing, analytics tools, staff time, and maybe even bringing in consultants. Those are very real investments. Now, is it incredibly cost-effective compared to buying a multi-million-dollar Super Bowl ad? Absolutely. But it is not some zero-cost magic wand. You have to deliberately invest your time and your creativity if you actually want to capture someone's attention in a super crowded feed. That naturally leads us into Section 4, the art of audience targeting. There's this fantastic quote from the Content Marketing Institute that puts it perfectly. They say, targeting isn't just about delivering the right message to the right person. If you just stop there, honestly, you're still thinking like a traditional marketer. True digital targeting is about understanding context, motivation, and the customer journey. Think about it. You could have two people, exact same age, living in the exact same apartment building, but they might buy your product for entirely different emotional or practical reasons. It is totally up to us to dig deep and understand those underlying human behaviors. So how do we actually pull that off? Well, it generally breaks down into a 4-step targeting process. Step 1 is defining your broad target audience and slicing them into specific segments based on shared characteristics. Step 2 is translating those dry segments into highly relatable personas, which we're going to dive into in just a second. Step 3 is developing a specific media plan tailored for each of those segments. Choosing the right platforms, maybe that's TikTok for snappy, fun videos, or LinkedIn if you're pushing professional thought leadership. Finally, step 4 is optimizing your schedule and posts. You actually have to post when your audience is awake and scrolling, and use the formats they actually prefer engaging with. Section 5. Building data-driven buyer personas. So here is the really crucial point. Big data, stuff like browsing habits, search history, purchase patterns, that gives us incredible power. But let's be honest, a giant spreadsheet of raw numbers is completely useless to a creative team that's just trying to write a really compelling Instagram caption. That is where personas come in. Personas take that massive mountain of digital data and they humanize it. So instead of saying, okay team, our target demographic is females 18 to 24, low income, you create a persona. You say, this is Ina. She's a 22-year-old university student. She is obsessed with TikTok. She's on a super tight budget, and she needs quick, affordable solutions. Boom. Suddenly, your whole team knows exactly how to speak to Ina. To build these profiles without just, throwing darts at a wall and blindly guessing, we can look at Michelle Golden's 3-step persona development cycle. First, you identify the persona roles. Who are the distinct types of customers you're actually serving? Second, you list out their needs and their situational triggers. What practical or emotional problem are they facing, and what specific event triggers them to finally pull the trigger and make a purchase? Is it payday? Is it finals week? Then third, you create your messaging objectives. Once you know exactly what Ina needs and what sets her into motion, you craft messages that answer her exact concerns, maybe zooming in on affordability and super fast delivery. All right, we are down to our final segment. Section 6, the social technographics ladder. This is a fascinating framework. Let's look at how people engage online, going from the most active folks at the very top of the ladder down to the most passive at the bottom. Up top, we have the creators. These are the people actually making original content, filming TikToks, writing blogs. Right below them are the conversationalists, firing off Twitter threads and keeping the chat going. Then you have critics, the ones leaving those Shopee or Amazon reviews that completely shape public opinion. Next are collectors, who are quietly, meticulously curating their Pinterest boards. Then we have joiners, who just sort of passively follow brands. And finally, at the bottom, the spectators. This is the massive, silent majority who just lurk, watch, and consume without ever hitting like or leaving a comment. Now, why does this matter to us? Well, if you know your audience is mostly made up of spectators, and you launch a campaign begging them to film complex video testimonials, it's going to completely fail. No way they do that. You absolutely have to match your strategy to the specific rung of the ladder your audience actually sits on. As we bring this explainer to a close, let's run through a really quick best practices checklist. Every single campaign has to start with a clear, defined strategy, not just a random urge to post something today. You must be honest and transparent, because digital audiences will sniff out inauthenticity from literally a mile away. You have to know your audience deeply, using those personas and the technographics ladder we just went over. Make sure you encourage active participation, but tailor it to their actual comfort level. And above all else, stay adaptable. The digital landscape changes so incredibly fast. The apps and the algorithms, they're going to change, but these core foundational strategies, those are here to stay. I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on as we wrap up this session. If you were to sit down right now, grab a coffee, and map out a campaign for a brand you absolutely love, or hey, maybe even your own business, who exactly is your audience? What are the deeply human problems they are desperately trying to solve? And what specific piece of content will finally make them stop scrolling, engage, and take action? Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep asking those right questions and happy strategizing.